Hello again, this is Mr. Simple, the sentence type squirrel, and today we will be talking about complex sentences. On the last show, we talked about how Mrs. Comb and Mr. Pound met and fell in love and got together and got married. Today, we will be talking about Miss Comb and her baby, Plex. Oh, she's so cute. As you remember, Miss Comb is independent. She can stand by herself. She has a subject, which in this case is Miss Comb, and she has a verb, which in this case is the word is. So you see, once again, she is an independent clause. Independent. Pepe! Who let you in here?
I brought a friend to see the baby.
Get out of here! Shoo! Shoo, both of you, shoo!
You got it, boss.
Grief. As I was saying, Miss Comb had a baby named Plex. Plex is a dependent clause. A dependent clause starts out with a subordinating conjunction. The subordinating conjunctions are
there's after, although, as, because.
Pepe, stop! Stop, you are ruining my show!
Okay, you got it, boss.
Anyway, alright, so a subordinate clause, also known as a dependent clause, has a subordinate conjunction, a subject, and a verb. The subordinating conjunctions are after, although, as, because, before, if, provided, since, unless, until, and then, whenever, wherever, and while, and where, and when. Your subordinate clause should always start out with one of these words. Look at the baby. The dependent clause cannot stand alone. Take, for example, the subordinate clause, although Plex is dependent. This clause has a subordinating conjunction, which is although, and it has a subject, which is Plex, and a verb, which is the word is. You cannot just say, although Plex is dependent, it is not a complete thought. So, to be a complete idea, we need to add an independent clause to the dependent clause. Oh, I gotta get in there. We already talked about the independent clause, Miss Comb is independent. It has a subject and a verb, and it can stand alone. So, we add this clause, an independent one, to a dependent clause. Miss Comb is independent, although Plex is dependent. This is a complete thought. This sentence, an independent clause and a dependent clause, is now known as a complex sentence. Once again, it has a dependent clause, an independent clause, and it is now a complete thought. So, don't forget, a dependent clause needs to start with a subordinating conjunction, which are Pepe! Pepe, you forgot your friend. Oops! Well, get him out of here.
Can I say the subordinate conjunctions first?
Fine, just get him out of here.
Yay! I will sing you the subordinate clause song. Subordinate conjunctions I hate and I abhor. There's after, although, as, because, and before. If, provided, since, and unless, until, and then. There is whenever, wherever, and while, and where, and when.
Okay, stop. I prefer getting eaten by the hawk. Well, if that's the way you feel, then we're leaving. Come on, Pepe.
Okay, goodbye, Mr. Simple.
Well, that was strange. So, now you know about the complex sentences. don't forget, if you start off with a dependent clause, you need to put a comma after it. If the clause comes after the independent clause, you do not need a comma. For example, if you said, Miss Com is independent, although Plex is dependent, you do not need a comma. But if you said, although Plex is dependent, Miss Com is independent, you would need a comma because the dependent clause starts first. Do you see? Once again, if you start off with a dependent clause, put a comma after it before starting the independent clause. So, you might be wondering, what if you have two independent clauses and a subordinate clause? What happens then? Well, I will tell you. Let's go back to our compound sentence. Miss Com is independent and Mr. Pound is independent. If you add the dependent clause, although Plex is dependent, you have made a compound complex sentence. Once again, an example of a compound complex sentence is Miss Com is independent and Mr. Pound is independent, although Plex is dependent. You see, two independent clauses and a dependent clause makes a compound complex sentence. If you don't understand this, then ask your teacher. My work here is done.
Goodbye.
Let's go. Make no excuses now. I'm talking here and now. I'm talking here and now. Let's go. Your time is running.